Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome in to the latest edition of Tider Insider TV. As you heard, it's brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. As always, I'm Gary Harris alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, and let's get right to it. Alabama basketball, our lead tonight, and it should be because a lot going on and off the court. But through all the controversy and, of course, the news that's, tragically occurred with a young lady losing her life, and former Alabama player Darius Miles being charged, one of two men charged with that murder. Alabama basketball, even after last week, once Brandon Miller's name was attached as having had the gun that was allegedly the murder weapon in his car, and also Jaden Bradley's name came up as possibly being in the vicinity of the shooting, this basketball team just keeps on keeping on. And they took care of Arkansas on Saturday in a game that they could have lost. They were down 9 at the break, scored just 28 points in the first half. But, my gosh, they came back and scored 58 in the second half. Had a 12-point lead, Rod, with 2:46 to go, and then had to hang on. Arkansas actually had a chance to tie it at the end with a three-point shot that went awry. But still, Brandon Miller, after getting 41 points and 8 rebounds against South Carolina on Wednesday night, comes back with 24 points to beat a very talented Arkansas team now with their roster intact and Nick Smith playing. This is a team that's playing more like a top 10 team than a team that's not ranked. But Rodney, Alabama basketball, Brandon Miller, since that news last week in that preliminary hearing where his name was brought up by an investigator, he went, as I said, for 41 and 24. So, that's 65 points in 2 games, 32.5 points a game. Nick Smith won Freshman of the Week because I just think they feel like they can't keep giving it to Brandon Miller. But, Rodney, this basketball team, I don't have to tell you where they stand. They're 15-1 in the SEC, ranked second in the country with 2 conference games remaining.
Yeah, 25-4.
Overall, yeah.
How many times has Alabama won 25 games in the regular season? I mean, this team right now, Gary, on a special roll. I mean, you look at them in this last game, you mentioned it, a high-quality Arkansas team, down by 9 at halftime. They respond, come out and outscore Arkansas 26-9, as you mentioned, had that 12-point lead with under 3 minutes left and hung on. But that's what good teams do when there's adversity against another good team.
Yeah, and we don't beat it to death because everyone knows what's going on in terms of the stories outside of the basketball. But again, basketball-wise, they're trying to do something tomorrow night, and we'll get to it more here in just a moment against Auburn. And that's win a second SEC regular season championship outright in the last 3 years.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Actually, what Nate Oats has done, what he's accomplished. You look at the youth on this team. There's a lot of people that thought, yeah, this team can be really good, but I don't think anyone really thought they would be where they are right now. But the chemistry that they've got on this team has really been amazing.
All right, let's get to our Coach Talk segment. Over the weekend, Brandon Miller received some more attention as part of the introductory recognition that Alabama does before all of its home games. Lights go down, there's laser lights. It's a big deal for all 5 of the starters to be introduced prior to the game. And something that they've been doing this year is kind of like, you're clear for landing. Cockrell, one of the walk-ons, pats Brandon Miller down as he comes out of off the bench to be introduced before the game. Again, like TSA cleared for landing, he's ready to fly now. But under the situation that Alabama's playing under, it's tone deaf at best. And Nate Oats was asked about it Saturday after the game. He said he was unaware of that he's busy getting ready for the game. But today when he met with the media, he took full blame for that situation.
That situation's on me. We addressed as a team. As soon as I brought it up to them, they immediately understood how it could be interpreted, and we all felt awful about it. They explained to me that it's like when TSA checks you before you get on a plane, and now Brandon's cleared for takeoff. We as the adults in the room should have been more sensitive to how it could have been interpreted. And I dropped the ball. That's it. I dropped the ball on it. We've addressed it. I can assure you it won't happen again.
All right, Rod, you and I think both have been impressed with Nate Oats, the 4 seasons that he's been here, as how matter of fact he is, how frank he is. When you ask him a question, you get an answer. Sometimes the truth, can be taken in a bad way if it's so matter of fact. And in this case today, though, he just flat out, I think he did the right thing. He is the head basketball coach. Like we said last week after that preliminary hearing, I felt like for whatever reason, Alabama didn't seem prepared for it. I don't put it just on Oats, but he is the head coach. This is one of those things that when you're dealing with a tragedy off the court that involves one of your former players that's charged with capital murder, in Darius Miles, and you've got another player, your star player, your freshman All-American candidate in Brandon Miller, who has been mentioned by an investigator as the gun being in his car. This is one of those things that somehow you have to catch it before the media does, and it's because it's inappropriate.
And I think he made it really clear. They had been doing this all season.
Mm-hmm.
It was
That's
something
true.
that started from the very beginning, so it wasn't really something new. And again, I think Nate Oats handled that perfectly, even though he could be criticized by some, if they choose to do so, that he missed it. But at the same time, I think, Gary, like he said, he summed it up. He took responsibility, assured the fans and the people at the university that this would not happen again. So I think it's time to probably move on.
All right, we're going to move on to the game tomorrow night against Auburn, 6 p.m. in Coleman Coliseum on ESPN2. If Alabama wins, as I said earlier, the outright SEC championship. If they were to lose and A&M wins its midweek game, then A&M could still be trying to get a tie for the conference championship when they play Alabama this Saturday in College Station. But Alabama's also perfect at home this year, 14-0. They're trying to get to 15-0, sweep Auburn, give Coach Oats a 5-3 record against Bruce Pearl. This is a big game for a lot of reasons.
Yes, it is. Hey, that first one in Auburn was really exciting, Gary. I mean, Auburn had control of that game. This was look at the atmosphere. They were preparing for this game. They were ready for this game down there at Auburn. The fans, they were into it. Very difficult circumstance. Auburn led for most of the game. Alabama fought its way back, took over the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game. Very impressed by the way they handled that game. And you know what, Gary? I think they're going to go in this game. Alabama's mindset's going to be really good. Yeah,
Alabama wants to go ahead and cut down those nets tomorrow night at home against Auburn. And, Saturday will still be a big game against Texas A&M, but it'll be nice going to College Station knowing that you're the outright SEC champions, and that's what this team is looking to do. And, of course, right now, according to bracketology, they're the number 1 overall seed, not just the number 1 seed, but the number one. And that obviously would mean that they'd be in line to play in Birmingham the first and second round, which would be a big advantage as the Crimson Tide tries to get to a Final Four for the first time in program history. Well, Alabama women's basketball is a team that did not end the regular season in a good way as they lost their final 3 regular season games of the year. And in the process, they let a double bye get away. Had they won any of those games, including Sunday against Ole Miss, and they lost a 2-point heartbreaker at home, they would have been the number 4 seed, and that would have been the double bye in the SEC tournament. Still, they get 1 bye, so they'll be the 6th seed, and they are going to play on Thursday up in Greenville, South Carolina, against either Kentucky or Florida. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But Alabama women having a heck of a year, and they'll hope to keep it going in the SEC tournament. All right, still to come on Tider Insider TV. Bryce Young opts out of throwing at the NFL Combine. We'll tell you all about that. And the Crimson Tide has added a former Liberty coach to its staff. He coached for Hugh Freeze last year at Liberty. Now he's joining the Alabama Crimson Tide. Plus, we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information right there on your screen, 205-348-WVUA. That's 205-348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUA23.com. We'll be right back with a show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Bryce Young will not be throwing at the NFL Combine this week. He will be talking with teams and going through some, quizzes and all the verbal stuff that they do, but he's not going to work out. He will throw at Pro Day on March 23rd. C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson have said they will all throw at the NFL Combine, other first-round possibilities. Many mock drafts still have Bryce Young as the first quarterback off the board. In fact, some have him as the first overall pick. But Rodney, your thoughts on him not throwing at the combine and waiting until his pro day?
You know, I've seen this in the past. I mean, obviously, he's going to throw for the scouts. They know what he can do, you know, for whatever decision. I'm not really sure why. But, you know, he'll get that opportunity to throw at the pro day. And I think it's really going to be interesting because some people are starting to generate the conversation about his size, you know. So I think it's going to be interesting to find out what he actually measures. But I don't think it's hampered him at all.
Chicago Bears have the #1 overall pick. Most people feel like that they will trade that pick to get some defensive help because they've got Justin Fields as their quarterback, and most up in Chicago still feel like they're committed to him. But if they trade that pick, there's a chance that the team that moves up will be moving up to take a quarterback, and that's how Bryce Young could factor into being the #1 overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. You know, the Texans end up with the #1 pick. Who ends up with that #1 pick will certainly determine the pecking order.
All right, so Alabama always a factor in the draft, and that will certainly be the case this year too. Will Anderson, Mike, could still be the #1 overall pick. Maybe the Bears just say, hey, we'll stay at #1 and take Will Anderson. That's a possibility as well, the outside linebacker for the Crimson Tide. All right, Alabama is expected to hire Robert Bala to be its new inside linebackers coach. Various reports, including ESPN's Chris Lowe, announced that. It's always never official at Alabama until sometime after the fact. But if that occurs, Bala will replace Austin Armstrong, who left Alabama without ever coaching even in a practice after coming over from Southern Miss. Bala served as a defensive analyst at Liberty last season, and he's a guy that evidently Hugh Freeze was very, very high on. And Alabama, even though I didn't have much knowledge of Robert Bala, Nick Saban obviously did, and it looks like he's going to join the staff.
You know, Gary, the one thing that really strikes me about him is the experience, the versatility that he has coaching different positions. He's coached linebackers, he's coached cornerbacks, he's coached safeties, he's been a defensive coordinator, he's even coached special teams. So, I mean, he's got a lot of versatility that he can bring to your staff.
When you saw the news come out, were you surprised at this hire a little bit?
Well, I knew they had hired a coach. I just didn't know who it was. So I had not, to be honest with you, heard of Robert Bala. But, again, it looks like, you know, the experience that he got, 2 years as defense coordinator at Southern Utah, is certainly something that, be beneficial.
Yeah, Nick Saban certainly took notice, as I said. All right, let's move on. Alabama softball, we were out at practice today. The Crimson Tide coming off a disappointing finish to the Easton Bama Bash. Now, they dominated their first 4 games, running through Kennesaw State and Southeastern Louisiana, run ruling both of those games, dominated against Indiana State as well. But on Sunday, they played Kennesaw State for a second time, and this is a team that's not very good, and Alabama lost that game 5-3. Head coach Patrick Murphy today talking about that game again and how do they move on and get better from it.
Up until Sunday, we were playing great all weekend. We just had a little dud there. The starting pitching wasn't good. The defense wasn't very good. The hitting wasn't very good. I didn't coach very well. So it was just a lousy way to end a good weekend. And I think it left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And, if we could have, I would have rather played yesterday right away.
As it is, they will play Southern Miss tomorrow evening. I like what Murph said there. He's kind of the same way on Sunday. No excuses. You're not going to win them all, but Kennesaw State, as I said, not a very strong team, and for Alabama to lose at home like that, that's rare, unexpected, and disappointing.
No, and I think you made a really good point on your radio show earlier this week, Gary, when you talked about developing depth on your pitching staff and how important that is now, and I think that's something that they're going to have to continue to do.
Yeah, they got 3 pitchers behind Montana Fouts. One of them really needs to step up and start giving them some quality starts outside of their ace. All right, Alabama baseball completed a 3-game sweep over the weekend on Sunday with a 4-2 win over High Point. And this is an Alabama baseball team that started the season 8-0, and after this sweep, it was an extra little bonus baseball. Alabama was scheduled to be out at Pepperdine this past weekend, but because of all the bad weather out at Southern California, High Point came here and played in Tuscaloosa. The Tide wins that series, gets the sweep. And then today, this afternoon, they just defeated Jacksonville State 17-3 to get to 9-0 on the season. Well, still to come on TITV, members of the Alabama Track and Field program win awards. We'll tell you more about that. And coming up, we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information on your screen, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. or you can email us at titv@wvua23.com. We'll take your phone calls and get to your emails. And you can even tweet at us if you would like. We'll be checking those for tweets with the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back after this. Twelve members of the Alabama track and field program have been awarded indoor track and field all-SEC honors. 6 male athletes made first team and 1 made second. All 5 female athletes made first team. Alabama's got a heck of a track program. Alabama will take a weekend off and then conclude its indoor season at the NCAA Indoor National Championships March 10 and 11 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Good luck to Coach Dan Waters and the Track Tide. All right, Rodney, phone lines, this is rare. Phone lines are wide open. I know that, spring football is around the corner, but this is very rare. If you want to get through, all the people that say you can't ever get through, you can now. 205-348-WVUA. That's 205-348-9882. In the meantime, let's get to an email, and it's our email question of the day, brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family for all your heating and air conditioning needs. It's KDM Service Corporation. Here's the email of the day. Does Alabama have a PR department? Why didn't they handle the weekend better? That's from James in Tuscaloosa. I don't know, James, you call it a PR department, but they have a sports information department. They have an athletic department with, all types of folks in there, assistant ADs, associate ADs. And I think that, as we said earlier, the situation could have been handled better. At the same time, Rodney, it's a tragic situation. It's a tragedy. And this is something that probably, as a basketball coach or a sports information person or administrator, you never really thought about having to go through. And I think it could have been handled better, James. But again, I'm not in that situation. And, you're doing the best you can as you go to be sensitive to the tragedy of the situation and also, protect your team and your players. It's just kind of a tough spot to be in.
Sometimes it's difficult to be prepared for everything.
That's right.
I mean, there's so much going on at one time. This is a very, like Gary said, it's an unusual situation. It's not something that you deal with very often. So I can tell you, I think they've admitted they would have probably done some things differently. But, moving forward, I think they're going to take the right action.
All right. Thanks for that email of the day. Phone lines are still open, 205-348-WVUA, 348-9882. I don't know if I've ever seen this on the show. But we're going to take time out, and we'll come back with more of the program. Give us a phone call. You can get through right now. We'll be back after this. Alabama Gymnastics had a big night this past Friday night. They recognized the 2003 National Championship team. They had alumni night. Just a lot of stuff going on and a great meet. Alabama had a couple of 10s on the balance beam, but still fell to LSU. 197.975 for the Tigers, 197.925 for Alabama. What a meet. Alabama's at Missouri this Friday before coming home against Boise State on March the 10th. Welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's jump back out on the get out on the phone line. So we've got a couple calls now. Caleb up in Hubbardsville is going to lead us off. Hey, Caleb.
Hey, Gary. Hey, Rodney. Yeah, I wanted to know, is Travaris Robinson going to be coaching both safeties and corners? Thanks, guys.
Oh, thanks, Caleb. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Travaris Robinson handled the corners. Charles Kelly had to handle the safeties this past season. There's still some uncertainty about how the staff is going to come together. So what do you know about who will coach the secondary?
Yeah, I think it's looking like that right now, Caleb. I think it does look like T-Rob will coach both. But, of course, as Nick Saban points out, he'll have a great GA there helping him in the corners.
Talking about himself. Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, Caleb, thanks for the phone call. Let's get to Bob down in Daphne. Hey, Bob. Bob, you with us? All right, we lost Bob. Bob, I don't know what happened, but if you can call back through. Let's get to an email question, and in the meantime, we're trying to figure out what happened to Bob. Can we do that? Okay, let's go to an email. What has happened with Brandon Miller? Will he still enter the NBA draft? That's from Barry over in Anniston. We just all have assumed that he's going to enter the NBA draft because of how good he is, and I think that he still will. With what's happened in regards to this situation that Alabama basketball is in, I don't know. My expectation is that he's going to be a top 5 pick and that he will go into the draft, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, all the feedback I've read, and again, it's been some anonymous quotes that they've had from NBA people. It doesn't seem like it would affect him.
All right, from what I understand, if you knew you callers that we lost on the line, want to call back in, we may still be able to squeeze you in a final segment if possible. But also, still to come on TITV, the Alabama rowing team practicing this morning for their only home regatta of the season. We'll have that story. And we were out at Black Warrior River this morning, and we'll be back with that and more from Tuscaloosa right here on TITV. You know about Roll Tide. How about Row Tide? Look at that. Beautiful today out on the Black Warrior River. That was early this morning. The Alabama rowing team practicing for their only home regatta of the spring season, which comes up this Saturday versus Eastern Michigan. And it's senior day. Going to honor the seniors. A hat giveaway. They're going to give away 120 total Row Tide hats, Krispy Kreme donuts, some shakers, tailgating games on the river, and a bounce house. So that's something exciting to get ready for on Saturday morning on the beautiful Black Warrior River. All right, thanks for tuning in to Tider Insider TV. It's been brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 after the news or online anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you tonight with some Alabama softball practice footage. We heard from Murph and the crew earlier as they get ready for Southern Miss tomorrow night. Here is some practice footage from this afternoon over at the Rhodes House. We'll talk to you again next week on Tider Insider TV. Have a great night, everybody.
That's it.